to call this March 2nd meeting of the Airy Town Council to order. Let's start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everybody, welcome. Do we have any presentations? It looks like we might. I see the,
Well, they're going to give us a presentation.
well, is that, do we do that, or we can do that?
That's citizen comment.
They do it on the system.
No citizen comments, okay. All right, we have no presentations, we have no guest speakers, we have approval of the minutes. Did anybody have any changes before we move them in? I will move we accept the minutes of February 2nd.
Second.
Got a second? Any
I beat Ken
discussion?
that time.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
They are passed. Police report. Did see him there. Oh, there he is. Now we try and get you back on the road as quick as possible out there.
And then we'll come back. There's more minutes.
Huh?
You only missed one on here.
We didn't have any closed meeting. Thank you, sir.
At least the new revised agenda only has one set.
Yeah, that's all we had. We didn't
Okay.
have a closed meeting or anything else last week.
Meetings issues.
You have one that you didn't sign from last month that had the corrections done, the January.
You had two corrections, and the ones I did the month
The
before.
January one.
Okay, so we don't need to have them run through again. We
No,
approved
no,
them.
you just need to sign.
They
Very
approved
good.
with.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're up.
Okay, batter up. Good evening, Corporal Noyes, State Police, liaison for Maryland State Police from the Westminster Barrack for the Mount Airy Troopers Resident Program. Just going over some of the statistical data that we've had over the last couple months, and I think cold weather kind of puts a damper on some things. However, suspicious vehicles, suspicious persons, we always encourage the public to give us a call anytime there's anything going on in town. I know we've had some break-ins of vehicles, and not so much homes, a lot of vehicles broken in some of the various neighborhoods. I know Trooper Smith has resolved one. I believe it was in the Nottingham neighborhood. There was various break-ins, and he's bringing that to a rather positive conclusion with some arrests. Suspicious persons, it seems to be about 10 or 12 calls per month for that. So I encourage, citizens to give us a call for anything that looks a little out of the ordinary. Give us just descriptions of persons, clothing, significant markings on cars, tags if necessary, or if possible. And some information I wanted to share with the public as well is we do get some various calls for ID theft and fraud. This time of year, especially with the filing of income taxes, it's been something more and more that comes to our attention, that people file their reports and all of a sudden Mr. and Mrs. Jones' report's already been filed. We'll come find out someone's used their information to file a report. The Federal Trade Commission is a good website. It's www.consumer.ftc.gov. It's Federal Trade Commission. Scam alerts as well. We get a lot of citizens will call about scams, and some of the ones that we get are people say they're from the IRS, and most people know that if the IRS contacts you, it's either through the mail or in person. So if they're calling you on the phone, it's probably going to be a scam. And there's just many scams, but feel free to call the barrack or contact one of your local troopers here in town, and we'd be more than happy to give you some guidance or information, or if you've been the victim of a scam, by all means, we'll take a report and try to resolve it as best we can. Traffic accidents seem to be kind of about the same every month, 4 to 5, 7, even with the bad weather. Doesn't seem like through February we had 7 collisions investigated, and also 7 that were minor fender bender type accidents. So the cold weather and icy conditions tend to bring that to light a little bit more. We have various thefts that are open that I believe will be resolved. I've talked to some of the troopers, and it appears that those, just some charges pending for those particular thefts, as you look down the list of reports. I had no other real significant information, unless you have any questions or concerns that I can help you with.
No, I appreciate the heads up on the scams, especially this time of year. We have a few questions. We're going to be doing some studies, and I'll get back with you on that.
Yes, sir.
So we communicate on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that very much.
Thank you. Well, I don't see any other questions.
No.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the hard work. Up next is the Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company. Is that Bruce?
Yes, it is.
This is your fire company hat, right?
Yes, I'm going to put my election hat on here shortly. For the month of February, rescue calls, we had 62 in Carroll, 55 in Frederick, 6 in Howard, and 1 in Montgomery, for a total of 124 EMS rescue calls. Fire calls, we had 17 in Carroll, 8 in Frederick, 2 in Howard, 3 in Montgomery, for a total of 30. Fire calls, total of 154 incidents, 79 in Carroll, and 63 of which were in Frederick County. And on March 15th, weather permitting, the Easter Bunny will come out of his hole, if he can get out through the ice, and join us for our breakfast. Our annual monthly breakfast will feature breakfast with the Easter Bunny on the 15th. So everybody hop on down and
We don't like to say
That laid an egg.
and enjoy that with the Easter Bunny.
Very good.
I'll put my election hat on if you don't mind.
You want to do it right now? Go right
Might
ahead.
as well. Remind
You're
you
already up.
again that we have an election this year for 3 open town council seats, and next Monday at 7 o'clock will be the first nominating meeting here at Town Hall. That will open the the nominations for a week, followed the next Monday by our final meeting. You'll also be able to submit nominations through the Town Hall during the interim period between those 2 meetings. And if you are new to town and have not registered to vote yet, the last day to register is April 6th. So you just register either in Carroll County or Frederick County, and that will make you eligible, if you're a town resident, to vote in the town election. So we're looking to have a good turnout, and hopefully we'll have a good slate of candidates, and the offices will, at least some of the offices will be contested, we hope.
You can also register just here at Town Hall, can't you?
Yes.
You don't have to register.
And register here at Town
Bob
Hall.
shares your
Talking
votes.
about Chris.
But we prefer that you register through the normal registration process. It just makes it a lot simpler for us to keep to check the records that way.
All right.
Other questions?
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, now we have community concern, citizen comments. I thought you gentlemen,
Give me a minute to get my video
you
camera.
gentlemen looked like you wanted to
My video
address this.
camera ready.
While he's getting that, I need to actually grab something out of my box.
Okay, this is gonna go on the town website, I just want you to know.
Yeah.
I gotta get out my weekend.
These cameras work 2 ways, by the way.
Yeah, how's that look? That look all right?
Oh, yeah.
You look
All right.
marvelous.
Where's my right-hand man? Mary Ann, help Bill here in a minute.
You do it all.
All right, let's get this going here.
I'd like to ask the state police to remain.
Based on previous years' experience, the council members are smiling, but underneath they're nervous.
My leg is.
Hello, gentlemen, ladies.
Hello.
We're
Welcome back.
Absolutely, we're back. I have a quick question for you. Why can't you borrow money from a leprechaun? Because they're always a little short. Why do all Scots have a good sense of humor? Because it's free. How can you tell if an Irishman's having a good time? He's doubling over with laughter. Yeah, these are all cute little jokes. But let me tell you why these are cute little jokes and why I'm here to tell you about them today. Because our festival is all about fun. And this year, we are unveiling something for the first time that I've ever seen at a Celtic festival or Scottish Games in America. I've never seen it advertised on a website. It's never been at a games that I've ever attended, and I've attended quite a few. So this is going to be a first for us. If we can unfurl the banner, make sure it's not upside down either. That is, we have, if we can ever get it unfurled, the Celtic Comedy Corner. This is our 4th venue of live entertainment. So our festival this year will feature 4 stages of live entertainment all day. That's a pretty good sized festival. And it's the first of its kind that I've ever seen. Will it work? I hope. Last year we introduced the Celtic Author venue. We had 8 authors attend, and they had a great time. The people at the festival really enjoyed it. We're bringing that back again this year. And I will get to my comedy point, the whole point of it, in a few minutes. But first I'd like to give you a little information about our festival. This will be our 15th festival, and it will be our 4th year here. It's hard to believe this will be our 4th year. Every year we have grown. This year we have grown significantly. We have already pre-sold 1,300 tickets.
Wow.
Never done that before. We are probably going to need some help. And our logistics chairperson, Mary Ann Elliott, is here this evening. We need some help with satellite parking. We'll need some help with managing the traffic. And that's what I was going to ask the state trooper about. If there's some way we can have a meeting with the town. But if it's a sunny day, there's going to be a lot of people coming. Our honorary chairperson this year is Admiral Paul Zukunft, who is the Commandant of the United States Coast Guard. And we have 2 clans that are holding their AGM, their annual general meeting, at our festival this year, which is the first time we've ever had one do this. And they will bring in people from all across America as well as Canada. So we have not 1 but 2 clans doing this summer, or this year at this Games. So we're anticipating a even bigger crowd simply because of that. Not to mention our entertainment and what have you is actually ratcheted up a bit. So it's going to be a great day. Again, this year we've named a Wounded Warrior charity as our charitable beneficiary. And this year it's Warrior 360. And that has a very good foundation. It's actually started and run by Wounded Warriors. It's not a business. It is Wounded Warriors helping other Wounded Warriors. Mr. Bill Elliott will talk a bit more about that in what they would like to do this year with the help of Mount Airy. And now it comes to the point of why I brought up the Celtic Comedy Corner. If I can get Mr. Wolf to pass out to your members what we would like to do. And while he's doing that, let me tell the town council that when we first came our first year, I think we had spent approximately $8,000, maybe between $8,000 and $10,000 in direct revenue with the town of Mount Airy and the surrounding areas. This year, we're probably going to be spending about $15,000 in direct business with businesses for rentals and things like that.
Why didn't you tell me that these were for the council members instead of the general audience?
Oh, I'm sorry, council members, yeah.
We can't,
Did I say general audience?
we can't read anyways.
All right. But I definitely want the town secretary to have 1 copy. Because I don't want the dog to eat the homework here.
He's right here.
So the mayor, being the gentleman that he is, was such a great sport about the Kilt the Mayor campaign. And he came out at our festival last year wearing a kilt. And you could see him walking all around with his arms in the air shouting freedom like Mel Gibson from Braveheart.
That's a little exaggerated. You do have to kill.
So, as a politician, he explained to me that, the Kilt the Mayor campaign, that sounds kind of good, but if it's really going to be catchy and snappy, it's got to rhyme, or you've got to have alliteration or something like that. So what better thing to ratchet it up than to have the Kilt the Council campaign? That has a lot more
I
alliteration
vote for
to
Ken
it.
Phoebus right now.
And I decided that since we do have our Celtic Comedy Corner, that this year we do it a little differently. I think we have a charitable organization out here trying to raise money for a caboose. That goes well with the kilt, by the way. I would challenge the council to go out and do some fundraising, and the council member that raises the most money for the charity gets to select which other council member he wants to see in a kilt.
How much are we gonna pay to see Ken?
I'm voting for Ken right now. Is there a
I'm
second?
counting for Ken too.
All in favor?
I got some stacked against me already, right?
That just means you have to raise a lot of money, that way you get to decide.
There you go, Bob. We'll all see that all our money goes your way, Bob, as long as you vote for Ken.
That's called preservation.
So, they're not even going in the back room to make that deal, they're doing it right in front of us.
Everything here is up
We
front.
don't want to violate open meetings law, so, what's the date?
So, if
haven't heard
you all
that.
would be agreeable
No, it's not
to
on
doing
there yet.
something for the benefit of the town, we would love to help you do this. We'll supply the kilt, and everybody's a winner.
What's the date?
Saturday, May 9th. It's always the second Saturday in May. And hopefully this year it won't rain. The last 2 years it's rained.
Gosh.
A couple days right after election.
It's been something.
Timing's everything. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Bill Elliott, as he has one more thing about our festival that he would like to mention. Yes, Saturday, May 9th. Saturday.
I would know I might have a kid in college as of that day.
So Warrior 360, if you recall seeing the Wounded Warriors compete in the Highland Games, Warrior 360 was founded by Martin Little, who was the double amputee who was competing in the games and actually tossed the caber and did a full rotation of the caber, being a double amputee. That's the charity he's put together for other returning Wounded Warriors, and he does a lot of activities around the nation's capital, around the region here, to raise money for Wounded Warriors, to get public involvement, etc. And one of the things he does is what's called a ruck. And you may have heard of the term rucksack. Well, what they do, instead of doing like a 5K run or something, you do a military forced march as a team. And so it's not an individual thing. You start as a team, you finish as a team, and you do military things throughout the ruck. And you actually march with a rucksack on. After we gave them kilts for the Highland Games here, his rucking team decided that was pretty cool, so they all bought kilts, and they typically ruck in kilts. So here's a photo of them on a 76-mile ruck through the desert. Another that they rucked overnight for 50-some miles, carrying a ruck. And they also often do things such as events. This is, the Marine Corps has a tradition of carrying like a telephone pole type thing around. And so this was where they did a ruck in downtown DC and carried this huge pole. Our intention here this year is to do a ruck through Mount Airy, but instead of 76 miles or overnight, we're talking about like a 2-hour, 5-mile ruck. Invite the public to join and raise money as part of the ruck. And one of the things they hope to do is to carry one of the capers throughout the ruck and take it up to the games and hand it off to one of the Wounded Warrior athletes and let him toss the caber that they've just carried the 5 miles, etc. So we don't need to close down any streets. It'll just be done openly. We have not worked on a route yet. We'd like to work with you on what you think a reasonable route would be so that we don't cause any problems, because we could have 30, 40, 50 people kind of walking around. So we just want to make sure that that's copacetic with you. But I think this would be pretty cool. Get the public excited, and hopefully get them involved in more fundraising for the charity.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, please contact me after the meeting. We'll try to make arrangements like we did last year. I'd love to be involved in this ruck
Absolutely.
campaign.
We'll make sure you're back on the festival grounds by the ceremonies.
Good.
In a kilt.
I have my kilt.
It just seems like it'd be a little more fair if whoever made less money would have to wear the kilt, wouldn't it?
There you go, Ken.
Would that just be a little more
You just
fair?
looked the part, Ken.
It's still going to be you, Ken. Keep changing the rules.
Yeah, we've already decided you can't, he's gonna change.
All in favor of Ken wearing the kilt, vote aye.
You want-
You can just keep those.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Well,
Does that
thank you
conclude?
very
Thank you so much. Such a
you.
break
Thank you,
out here.
guys.
Thanks for all you
Thank
do
you.
for Mount Airy. It's a wonderful festival, and I hope the town comes out and witnesses all the great events and
Thank
all the
you.
vendors. It's a great time.
And we'll be in touch for the support.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizen concerns or comments? Oh, I see the
Tag
the
team.
tag team of Larry and Mary.
Team Husho.
We just wanted to come up and thank everybody that helped with the bag and basket bingo on Saturday night. I have a
It
few.
was a lot of fun. I won $50.
We did have a good time. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And he donated $50.
I spent a lot more than $50, actually. I was well behind by the end of the night, but I figured I'd get baskets here and there. I got cash.
Just to thank some people by name, Billingsley Butts, thank you very much. Mike Regal, Mary and Joe Van Meter, they were wonderful. He worked his little fanny off and she was at the door, my go-to person, she was wonderful.
I sat with Mary. She's a pro.
The LHS Key Club came out, they were helping with tables and whatever we needed to do. Mike and Nancy O'Brien, they handled the food and everything. You guys did a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Diane Martin, as always, did a wonderful job. Bev and Rick Blatchford, they came out. Our daughter Elizabeth was there helping. Her friends Taryn and Taryn's boyfriend, Patrick Dougherty, he was, talk about a salesman. He sold 4 of these cash board games. We expected 2. The boy is just wonderful. And last but not least, Ellie Bondi, she came and helped out, and then she donated some things to the event as well. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks for all your work. It was a great event. It was a packed, it was a packed house. It was a
The
packed
chairman
house.
of the event was Mary, so she did a wonderful job, and the initial numbers are showing that we made about $6,000 in one night, which was outstanding. So, and I echo about the Van Meters. They were wonderful, and it was nice to have Joe there, who has a lot of expertise in holding bingos. Anyway, what I wanted to give you a quick update on was the caboose status, and Wayne is outside. He's selling the raffle tickets for the corn toss boards, and that's our next fundraiser, and that'll end at the you can buy raffle tickets from now through the chili cook-off, and then at the chili cook-off they'll make the drawing at the award ceremony at the end of that, which I think is April 18th. Correct? Chili cook-off's April 18th. Yeah, for the chili cook-off. So, what I wanted to update you on real quick is I've been, based on the discussions that we've had at Parks and Rec and with individual councilmen, I've gone to the EDC and I've gone to the Planning Commission to talk about the final location of the caboose. And we pretty much we're kind of being drawn into one location, which we'll present next month. And my question for the council and the mayor is that next month I'd like to put a slide up on the board, show you what we've arrived at, our final conclusion, where we're planning on putting the caboose, get your input on it, and have the council and mayor basically bless the decision or endorse where we have arrived at. So next month, however it goes on the agenda, whatever you want me to do, to put a slide up, show where it's going to be.
If they know it, it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
They've got it, so it'll be
Okay.
there.
All right, I see Mr. Scranton from Catonsville Homes is here, so he's been going to the meetings too, because chances are it'll be a piece of property that he owns. So, okay, thank you.
Let's thank Mr. Scranton too for all his help.
Yes.
With the caboose.
And the caboose. All right.
Chris, you want to hold this?
Give it to me.
I got it from you.
Okay, Rick Blatchford, Nottingham. I don't have anything fun to talk about, but it's not bad. Based on last month's town council meeting, there was been discussion about prioritizing something that was brought up by Mr. Swanson, and I tried to emphasize. Prioritizing of the town projects is important. I think most of you realize that. I've given it, prior to last month's meeting, I really hadn't given it a lot of thought myself. But having done so, I have no irons in this fire. But it seems to me the most important project in this town right now, and there's a lot of opinion about it, pro and con, but there's one building in this town that seems to be in danger. I imagine, I'm not an engineer, but I've been in the building only 3 or 4 times in my 10 years in town. And the Flatiron Building is in really, really poor condition, and I'd hate to see an engineer's assessment of how imminent it is to collapse. If it does collapse, you got 2 main streets in town, Park Avenue and Main Street, it's gonna land on. That's important. People can be hurt. Bottom line is, I could talk about it all night. That should be the #1 priority. I don't care what you do with it. You expand it, you take it down, you rebuild it. I don't have an iron in that fire. I understand that the community center is important to some people. Lastly, about prioritization. Last month, I mentioned prioritization, and shortly thereafter, there was what I would have called a pop quiz prioritization popped on you council members. Give us your opinion right now, no prior thought. It requires thought. A 5 or 10 or 15-minute exercise is not appropriate to the task. It's serious stuff. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. We have any other comments? Not seeing anybody else, let's move on.
I just want to ask the town engineer, Warren, is there any indication that the Flatiron Building's going to collapse at any point in time right now? I don't want to leave folks with the impression that the Flatiron Building's going to collapse in the next month or 2.
Well, we do know the Flatiron Building's in disarray. There's
not-
water leaking down the walls. We found something when we did the museum where there's a lack of rebar in the foundation, and there was a lot of loose concrete that was repaired. Whether it's going to fall, is it leaning? No, we haven't seen anything like that, but we do know it needs some work.
Yeah,
I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
and
the
I want
public
to
knows.
clarify too, we also have water coming into this building, and it's in no danger of collapsing. With a property that old, it's not unusual. I've been there during heavy rains, 0 water coming through the roof.
Right, I just want
0.
to make sure that.
So the building is in no danger of collapsing, and you don't need a PE to know that.
Right, that's all. I just
Okay.
want to assure the public that the building is in no danger of.
But it needs
collapsing.
attention.
But it
It's,
certainly needs
it's an older property that needs attention, but it's not going to collapse.
Okay, thank you.
Having said that, I would like to bring up one thing. You have to categorize
Yeah.
the buildings in town, and which ones in order are most in danger. Would it be in your top 5?
Wow, that camera just swung around and got you. Yes,
I'm not
yes,
saying it's
yes.
gonna collapse tomorrow.
I don't know, is that a pop quiz?
Here's a pop quiz question.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on.
That's true.
All right, ordinance 2015-1. This is the ordinance to distinguish between parking and storage areas in an industrial zone. We had a public hearing on this previously. Nobody spoke up. I will move that we accept ordinance 15-1. Do I have a second? I got a second pen up over here by Scott. Is there any discussion on this? It's introduced last month. No discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Unanimous?
Bless you.
Up next, ordinance 2015-3. This is the budget amendment covering trooper expenses and the caboose funding, which is here for adoption. I will move that we accept 2015-3. You have a second? Ken seconded it. Any discussion?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions.
All right.
2013-3. So, if I could just get a brief explanation on the trooper budget. So, we have a contract with the state troopers. That contract has a budgeted amount, yet we ran over in the last 2 years $60K. So just an explanation of, even though we have a contract and the contract sets for a budget amount, why is it that they're charging us an additional $60K?
It's also in the contract that they have pass-throughs for expenses, and those expenses are never known when we do the budget.
Okay. Do they explain what the pass-throughs are?
Oh, yeah, that's all they
Okay.
know.
What were they? I'm just curious this time.
I didn't know it was gonna be discussed to detail.
Yeah, we can give you all that information, but it's a series of pass-throughs, like with any kind of commercial property management. arrangement or
Yeah,
any
it
type
is
of
typical on
contract.
commercial property that those things pass through, whatever they are, they
Okay,
are.
that's fine.
They
And
give
then,
an estimate, Chris, and once they're done,
Yeah.
they're
yeah, because it's awful hard to budget when all of a
Right.
sudden.
You don't
that's-
know.
With
Yeah,
the
yeah.
balance
No.
for the year previous, then anything over, we have to pay, anything under, we get back.
Okay, but I bet it's never anything under.
Actually, we have gotten
Yes,
refunds.
Yes, several
Okay.
times.
And then the second question is, we're moving 212K to reserves, is that correct? Is it Charlene? The 200, the question, 212 are going to reserves?
Yes,
Okay, reserves, general fund reserves?
yes.
Okay, and is that allocated to any particular purpose, or we're just putting it in reserves?
No, it will go into just a capital improvement fund.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Good points, Councilman.
Yeah. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Looked like everybody? Ordinance 2015-4, ordinance to clarify street parking prohibition. This is here for introduction. I will introduce it. Do we have a second on the introduction? Bob has seconded on the introduction. This will come back up next month. Does this need a public hearing, Tom? Let's see, when it, no. Because we needed it for parking, but I guess because that was a zoning issue. Yeah, okay, all right. I still saw parking on both of them, so I thought I'd better ask. All right, ordinance 2015-5, ordinance to amend Chapter 17 licenses for introduction. This is to try and sort out the peddler issue. I know I've been here a few times and chatted with staff and going through these issues, and it's like, what are we really supposed to do? So this is to attempt to clarify all that. I will introduce this. I got a second on the introduction.
Second.
Scott already did it. Scott seconded the introduction, so this will be on the agenda for next month.
Can I have a couple suggestions while we
Sure.
work through it?
Yeah.
First suggestion, one of the suggestions in the ordinance is to do a no solicitation list. Can we reverse that and do a I want to be solicited list? In other words, I really haven't met many people in town that enjoy having people come knocking on their door.
I would just question whether you can do that, whether you can do that legally. I would question whether or not.
It's a great question.
I mean, it's a good
Well,
idea.
if we
I like
do
the idea, because nobody's ever going to say, yes, solicit me.
Well,
But
that's up to folks,
but then you would just, basically, at that point, you'd really just have to say, let's ban all solicitations from the town.
Well,
all
First
I'm
Amendment, I
saying
don't think you
is-
can do
And
that.
Right, and so this is almost effectively doing that.
All-
Is it?
All I'm
Yeah.
suggesting is that instead of having a no solicitation list, we have a solicitation list.
Can we ask
So,
Tom to look into that?
I would ask Tom to look into it, and then we can look at this as a whole and get back as a body
Yeah.
for next month.
All right,
And,
So bring that,
okay,
yeah.
I would be careful whether that banned your scouts.
this is commercial. This is only
They're
commercial.
already excluded.
Nonprofit.
They're already excluded from the licensing.
Okay.
And if I could, Chris, I think it's a great idea. So just so the public knows, for years, we've never issued a peddler's license or a solicitor's license. We have recently found out that may change due to that little thing called the First Amendment. But in doing so, we're looking at this very closely. We're gonna make it very clear that this person is, in fact, permitted by the town. They are gonna be run through a series of Better Business Bureau checks before we issue a permit to them. And so it just won't be everybody running around out there. They're gonna have to pass a lot of requirements to get this license, but we cannot outright not allow it.
Right, and I'm not suggesting we don't
I
allow
know
it,
you're
but,
not.
but
I
for
like-
example, the FCC has the do not call list that, I mean, the federal government seems to find rules
Well,
to
but it's
regulate
a do
commercial.
not, but see, it's a
It's a
do
do
not
not
call
list.
list. It's not a, I want to call list.
Right, you
I
reverse
suspected, I suspected an I want to call list would be deemed,
Right.
Effectively a complete suppression. So,
Well,
but Tom's
just a
going to look
suggestion,
into that and
Tom.
get back to us.
A couple other points I'd like to suggest. The time that we allow on page 5, so section 70-15, subsection E, it says a licensee may only peddle or solicit between the hours of 9 to 6. I'd like to change that to 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, because by 6 o'clock, most people are having, dinner
Well,
with
9
their
to 5, Monday through Friday, nobody's home.
hear me out, I'd like to
Okay.
change that from 9 to 5, because by 6 o'clock, most folks have come home, they're starting to have dinner with their families, they don't want to be disturbed.
That's
Plus,
the best time
As
to
soon as he
get
gets
them.
done, was
Plus on
your
Saturday-
was your comment on that
It's,
specific?
it's in regard to the whole thing. I think they're great suggestions Chris has, but not having reviewed the whole thing, I think for discussion, because we're not supposed to be discussing it right now, it's only intro, bring all those up for next time.
Well, I
You're
just
making a
want-
lot of changes that,
well, I got just one more.
Yeah, when I
That's
read
fine.
through it, I guess I would like to hear it, because when I spend time and do my final draft of it,
That's fine.
it'd be nice to have those in mind.
Yeah, so, okay, so,
because then I would just
again,
say change it.
back to my point,
Before
9
intro.
to,
Well, we
9
will be
to,
changing it next month, I'm sure.
all right, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, by 6 o'clock, folks are having dinner. On Saturday and Sunday, folks don't want to be bothered until 12, so Saturday and Sunday, again, 12 to 4 only on Saturday and Sunday. Again, by after 4 o'clock, folks are having dinner with families and friends and guests. Before then, folks are typically, attending some sort of religious service, synagogue, church, mosque, whatever. And then last but not least, I'd like to see the fine get substantially increased. Because right now, I think the fine is $25,
No, I don't think there's any.
50? It's no more than 50. It's not in the section, but I'd like to see.
For a violation, whatever the violation is.
Correct.
Yeah, it might be 50, I'm not sure.
It might be 50, but I'd like to see that fine substantially.
Yeah, but that would be a whole separate thing, that wouldn't be in here, but I would.
Points.
We're making changes.
I would say, but we're not making a change here, you want to take another section and change it to increase the fine.
Okay.
And I think that's not a bad idea,
So-
it's just not part of this.
Okay, so Debbie, if we could just tack on a section, wherever it is, I'd like to change it to
If it's
$250.
changed in the ordinance, then it's changed. If it's not mentioned in the ordinance, it goes under the section regarding fines for everything in town. So,
Okay, well, if we
So
could
we'd
do
have to,
Peter's,
so what it says, we would have to redraft and amend that ordinance.
or, Peter, you can actually add the fine in here.
Oh, specifically in here.
Could, and there,
Specifically
I can't
added.
recall, but there may be a section within chapter 70 that sets forth a specific fine. It just wasn't suggested to me to change it.
Right.
right, so the fine for a hydrant's 500, I think. So for here, I'd like this to see 250, because that's a real detriment to breaking the law here.
What would you like to see?
250.
You like to do 250?
And also, I've noticed in other townships that I've visited, they actually have signs similar to our water meter signs as you come into town. Not that I want to have more and more signs, but they do say you need to have a town
Solicitors
permit.
by permit
By
only.
permit only. I think in Bowen Heights, when you enter Bowen Heights, you have it. That's why we have the yard signs we throw up, just so they know.
On that little teeny monument sign you're gonna put out there, you could put a great big,
Those are my
All
suggested
right.
changes.
Good
It's
stuff.
on for next month, Debbie.
Tom? No,
Resolution 2015-1, this is
Larry wanted it.
our water capacity section.
It gets over to Bob.
You can lead this one up, Bob?
yeah,
This is your report so that we can come up with the capacity. for
right,
the code.
first, we're introducing, is this something we're passing tonight? Do I need to make a motion?
It's a resolution, so we can pass it tonight. Am I correct, Tom?
Yeah, you could pass it tonight, or you could.
Okay, well, I'm
Or we
gonna start
could-
this
or we
off
could-
with making a
Or
motion.
we could, you could introduce it and we could vote on it next month. We can do either, whatever you want.
We have no problem with this. And with the 2020 plan, the Water and Sewer Department is required to come back to the council. I believe we come to the council and then it goes to the Planning Commission for their input as to allocation.
Not in this instance, because this is sort of a midstream increase
Okay.
in the capacity. Normally, that's the case.
And there are 2 year, they allocated for 2 years last year.
Right.
Okay. But this would add another 20,000 gallons to last year's 20,000 gallons, of which 19,127, I believe, remains, for a total of 39,127. Is that right, Dick? 39,127? But, we talked to staff, and talked to the planning commission, and they want to go ahead and do 20,000 gallons more. And that's what we voted to do.
And then the allocation set forth, recommended by planning, passed by council meeting, these are the allocation categories
Right.
of the water. It does not change.
That does not change.
Yes,
This is
this is
just
not
adding
correct.
20,000 gallons
Just
more.
adding more money to the pot that's
Right.
divvied up. according to the
Right,
schedule.
Right, and historically, when we came up with the ordinance, we were afraid, cautious that we'd put too much water on our street and get ourselves back into a shortage. So this is part of that
Right.
incremental process. of
Correct.
Risk reduction.
Yeah,
So I guess the question I'll ask is that if you said we already have a balance of 19,000,
Well,
roughly?
they failed to allocate 127 gallons last year. That's how much is still on the books. And we're adding 20,000 to that.
So you, to be clear, it's not 39,000 being added that can be drawn
No,
from,
no,
you're
it's-
adding
there will be-
less than
There will be a
1,000.
total, there will be total that they can assign or they can allocate of 39,000 this year. They've still got the 20,000. You can't take it back once you give it.
Right, so the 19,000 didn't get spent, to be clear.
That's correct.
Okay, so we have 19,000 that did get spent last year, and we feel a need to offer out another 20,000 on
Well,
top of it?
The planning commission feels that there are several projects that are going to come online that are going to need this water, or that are going to be started that are going to need this water this year. And that would be,
well, I'm glad to see them looking down the line and saying we need to release water for these projects.
right, and because if you don't release it, you get so far and you've got to stop because you have no water.
Right, and then the reason why we went into this mode was when the Water and Sewer Commission, along with Planning Council, originally said, look, based on all the numbers, it looks like we have a total excess of 60,000 gallons. So instead of releasing the whole 60,
Right.
it was, let's do it, everybody said, let's do it incrementally. So this is, again,
We're
part of that.
we're kind of sneaking up on it.
Right,
We're
and
being
that's
conservative, being
We're
conservative.
very conservative, so hence there's no reason not to release the extra because it's there.
Doesn't that sound better than sneaking up on it?
We're sneaking up on it.
Well, we are, I mean, to clarify that comment, we are releasing the extra because we already have 19,000, so we're releasing another 20,000 to get to 39.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, versus, I guess. before
Holding
this-
at the 19 and just saying we have
Well, if
19
we hold
available
the-
still
if
that
we
we didn't
hold the-
spend.
If we hold the 20, okay, then it'll come up again in a year. We would only have 19,000 to allocate in a year, and there are several projects, according to planning, that
That
the
need this water.
They need the water this year.
No, I
If
agree.
it doesn't happen, the water doesn't go anywhere.
So then we have 39,000 rolling into next year with the potential of another 20,000 on top of it, if nothing gets
Right,
spent.
but we may not release more then if it's not going.
Right.
Or if we
If-
don't
if-
think there's projects that are gonna take it.
But sorry, apologize. Let me, the intent was, back when water and sewer re-baselined the consumption numbers, the agreement was, look, we've re-baselined the numbers, declining consumption, water leak, stops and things like that. And there's 60K now that we can put on the street. So again, the intent was to put the whole 60, release the whole 60, but we wanted just to do it 20 at a time to make sure if the consumption numbers went up, we wouldn't put
Right,
ourselves in danger.
yes,
So there's no reason not
and
to
that's
release.
exactly right. We changed the baseline, so we're releasing 20,000 at a time.
All right. What's our consensus? We can vote on this now or next month?
I'll make a motion to vote on it now.
Well, okay, we've got it's been, Bob's moved in 2015-1 and Chris has seconded it. So we're up for it now. Any discussion on it other than what discussion we've already had?
I guess the only thing
Yeah,
that I'd want to
concern.
know is what is the list of things that they're proposing? I mean, it's not that I'm concerned about releasing water because there's projects.
You mean
but-
what planning thinks are the projects that are out there?
Correct, that it needs to fund a mass amount of water for. If we didn't spend 19,000 last year, I'm just curious, what is the extra 20,000 that they're expecting is gonna come run in this year on top of that 19,000? That's all.
Heather's not here
No,
tonight.
otherwise I would ask her.
Because I know Heather would sit down and go,
And that would be perfectly fine.
Right, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but even if there were nothing on the table right now in front of planning, it wouldn't matter, something could come in tomorrow. And the point is, from a commercial perspective, we want to make sure that, hey, if something comes in tomorrow and they need 39,000
It's
gallons,
ready.
it's
And
here.
And if things happened either on Prospect Mill or the rail yard or Center Street where that water was
Yeah.
needed,
Yeah,
The only thing I would say, but remember, there are allocation categories, so
Yeah.
Right.
39,000 isn't carte blanche for
Nope.
any type of
No, no,
project.
no.
Right.
And there's only certain
Barney-
periods in a
Barney
year
knows-
that you could
Barney knows what a
rebalance.
few of the projects are.
I think you mentioned most of them.
Oh, Prospect Mill.
Yeah, cold storage, that's a possibility.
Right.
28,000 of the 40,000 is for priority area, which is the priority downtown area.
So we have that much stuff coming up
Right.
that's gonna
Right
need
now-
20,000
Right
gallons.
now, there's no percentage for residential, although there's a couple projects that are knocking on the door for residential. And so that's essentially where they're at. I mean,
Right, and it's to make sure the water's in place in case something should happen on Center Street, and anything can happen in a year. Something should happen on Center Street, Prospect Mill, or the rail yard. And I think those are the ones that Heather was most concerned about.
that property is not.
Beck property, right. So there are projects out there that could come to fruition this year. If you don't have the allocation, they stop.
All right.
Come.
And it's also
Well-
not meant as a growth control tool. It's
Yeah.
not meant
No,
at all.
no.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Was unanimous?
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right, Chris, you've got a strategic financial plan next on the agenda
Yeah,
here.
late ad. So I appreciate everyone's patience, a very late ad.
Do we need a screen here? Stuff gonna be thrown, see?
No, but you can ask pop quiz.
Could we drop the washout lights?
Can someone grab the lights, please? Get the lights. Thanks.
First try. Good one, Bruce, yeah, that was impressive.
Well, Bruce, don't.
He's just gonna
Don't
start
mess
throwing
it
them
up,
off.
you're fine.
Don't go crazy.
Wait.
Yeah, that's good, we're good, that's good.
You go two more and we're in total darkness here.
Next slide, please.
Hold on. Arrow.
Bless you.
Thank you. Wait a minute, it's not working.
Don't we have a clicker?
Well, that was a great
We do.
presentation, Chris. Thank you.
Not a person. I mean, I have a
Here's
little,
a disclaimer, my
I just
opinion's
can't
on
get
that.
the,
Hold on a second.
I can't get the turn page. In the beginning.
One of my emails gonna pop up.
there you
You
go.
got a point there, Rob.
Is that, Chris?
I'm reading here, so somebody, the person presenting can read.
All right, Chris.
Okay, next slide. Here's a disclaimer of my stuff.
I didn't have time to read the disclaimer. It's invalid.
We'll read it.
Actually, you gotta get an attorney. I should make the print really, really small, like on the TV portion. Okay, all right. So I thought real quick, I'd spend no more than 5 minutes. All right, 10 minutes. Just going over some ideas. Change of plan, change of focus. So haven't made much progress yet, but what's been great is a lot of input from the community, a lot of input from the council staff about how we should, approach the financial plan challenge that we have. Next slide. So, next budget cycle is soon upon us. So the budget cycle now gives us, the fact that we're already starting our budget planning, gives us now a perfect opportunity to start to focus on some of these issues, because all the numbers will be coming together, the council will be coming together, and we're looking at stuff heavily. I've got a couple suggestions on how we look at the next budget cycle. So my suggestions are perhaps different from the way we've done a budget cycle before. The first suggestion will be, I'm not aware of we town having a set policy for how much money we need in general fund reserve and how much money we need in water sewer. So help me with the rough numbers. Right now, we roughly have about 6.3 million in general, roughly 6.3 million in general fund reserves and roughly
6.5, I thought.
rough numbers. 4.5 in water, so, right?
Okay.
So I think because we really don't have one, we as we approach a budget cycle, we need to set a policy on what that number might be. And that'll be up, of course, for the mayor to suggest, because the mayor is the chief financial officer. And there are lots of resources out there that tell us, we could just say, look, we need 25%, whatever the number is, but we should have a target that says, here is how much money we're going to carry in reserves, whatever that number might be, but suggestion one. Next slide. Number two, we need to identify which budget categories are increasing at a rate, better than the out year's estimate. So we know right away, and the state trooper program, That budget is continuing to escalate at quite a large rate, 10, 11% perhaps. We know, for example, in fiscal year 14, it was about 663K. For 2016, we're planning for 900K, rough numbers. But we're going from 663K 2 years later to 900K. That's a lot of money. So that's a real concern, and I know the mayor's already starting to address that. But we need to identify what categories in our budget, are growing at that sort of rate. Suggestion number 3, which categories may increase at a rate beyond the out year's estimates. Now, the one, I bring up, and I bring this up independently, not as anything official from the fire company, but let's say in the future, 5, 10 years from now, the Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company has to go with more paid responders. That clearly might affect our budget, so that's a risk item. So again, what categories are really increasing fast, what categories might increase. Next slide. Suggestion number 4, let's really validate the sources for currently planned capital expenses for both, the general fund and water and sewer. Now, I know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know when we talk about water and sewer, when we do capital expenses, typically it's by bond, right? And then the water and sewer department, since it's self-sustaining, pays off those bonds as time goes on because the system pays for itself. If we look at the general fund, it's somewhat different. But we really should validate what we have on the books and how we expect to pay for them. Number 5, prioritize a wish list. Now, yeah, I did a quick pop quiz last time around, but the idea was just to have a very quick discussion about what the council's thoughts are on general ideas. But again, as part of this project, let's determine what that wish list is. And I think, the Flatiron building, clearly that's part of it. The point when we go through this budget cycle is go back. Next slide.
You touched it, you need to
Oh,
go next slide.
did I go back?
Next slide, you're going the wrong way.
Wrong way.
Okay, hold on.
There you go.
Okay. The point is, as we go through this next budget cycle, what I'm recommending is we reconcile the reserves against what the risks are, and to determine what remaining funds are available to the wish list. And again, the reason why I started this whole thing a month or so, or a year or so ago, is as the community center becomes more of interest, as the Flatiron building and replacement becomes more of interest, I still can't rationalize from looking at the numbers, how much can we really afford to spend on things? And that's kind of the point of what we're trying to drive here. Next slide. So, again, wish list projects, we kind of know. We saw this before, but as part of this process, I think the budget processes, we should prioritize what these lists are, what this list is. Next slide. Last but not least, Dick Swanson was kind enough to provide the council an example via email of what the process looks like. Don't take this as hard numbers, don't take this as policy, don't take this as anything other than here is example exercise that Dick Swanson was kind enough to provide the council of how we might go about picking our wish list, picking what we can afford, and how we get there. So, anyway, next budget cycle, or the budget cycle we're currently in right now, I think we should sort of modify it, kind of follow some of these steps, because at the end of the day, I still think we need to get to, what are the excess reserves that we have, make sure we don't put ourselves at risk, make sure that we know how much money we've allocated for our rainy day fund reserves. And then we know how much we could possibly invest in, say, a community center or Flatiron building, or how much Rails to Trails needs. Right? And of course, we know it's not just the initial investment of building, say, a community center or Rails to Trails, Flatiron building, it's the continuing operations and maintenance costs that will always get us. So anyway, I said I'd only be 5 or 10 minutes. Questions, discussion? Anybody?
Well, just a debt up here, isn't that wrong, Charlene? She's got 5 million, aren't we 7 million, something?
Yeah, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but on water and sewer, almost all that debt is in bonds, and we can't pay those bonds.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying up here, it's 7 million instead of 5 million? It says debt?
Yeah, Dick, please join.
The debt and water and sewer is, as of the end of last fiscal year, and since then, there's been additional money put into water station improvement, is that what it
We're
is?
starting that project, yeah.
All right, so it's up to, the debt's up to what, 7?
I think it's about 7.5.
7.5. So the difference in the numbers between what the debt is in water and sewer today of 7.5 versus that 5.8 is nothing more than timing. That's the fiscal, the annual report for town of Mount Airy is June 30th.
But, and, you know, don't, I suggest, as I said, don't take the numbers literally, but Dick was kind enough to run an example of a process of how we should start to allocate the money, so. Okay.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Dick.
I just like to add my own point of view on prioritization. Since you're doing the budget cycle, and we know the Flatiron Building is an issue and it's going to have to be addressed, I would suggest very seriously that you put the money in the budget to do the engineering and architectural work at a minimum for fiscal, what would that be, 16? On that building, so that within 2 years, we can actually have a building there.
The problem is, sir, the problem is, we have 4 or 5 options on the table. We can't budget every one of them. And that was one of the reasons I...
We have to make up our mind. and
Let me,
make-
excuse me, I believe I had the floor. Excuse me. That was one of the reasons we wanted to move forward on the community center, to see if it's a yay or a nay at that location, so we can move forward with the Flatiron Building. That was one of the big sticking points, one of the reasons I was so passionate about, let's make a decision, let's vote on this. So it's a good point, Dick, but we have several options on the table. Thank you, I'm finished.
And sorry, that's right. And to the mayor's point, and Dick, also to your point, at the end of the day, if we
like
reconcile
automatic.
reserves and we know here's what we potentially have to afford, now you can start to make some informed decisions about what we can and can't do. Because we don't want to go into debt, I don't think. We're not going to raise taxes. So, you know, the mayor said that we have multiple options. The problem is, how do we, if we do an engineering study, well, against what option? It may not be. Hence, reconciling what we need to put away in reserves against the risks will give us a number that we can start to.
Perhaps we can go middle option. Maybe that's an option.
Good point. Thank you.
Bruce, can you swap those lights back? Thank you.
Excellent.
Wrong ones.
It's so
I
good
guess
to
it was
get
too much for us to expect you to get it right twice.
He just kept working his way down the list.
All right, request for approval, purchase of a budgeted truck. We've got the numbers here.
And I've got a question on the truck. Is there, Barney, is there a state program? Is there some sort of, there's got to be some sort of fleet buy option that we could join? Have we ever looked at that?
We used to do it under that.
So it's on here.
We generally.
I think we do that.
It's on here.
Okay, that's on here, good.
Yeah, it says fleet
Good question, good question.
purchase.
Barney, finish your,
I was just gonna
Okay.
say, we generally piggyback, I didn't look at this one in particular, it's from Brian, but, we generally piggyback, existing contracts.
Okay.
It's on here.
Good question.
Good.
Normally Criswell is our vendor for that,
that's because they have the contract.
and they came in higher,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, Jeff Barnes actually bid a little lower than, I guess, what, because you're right, Criswell's where we've gotten everything, because they're normally the state contract people, and they get.
So they've got the fleet contract
Somebody,
with the state of Maryland.
right, but somebody underbid them.
Do we know if Pennsylvania's cheaper?
Don't know. Don't have to take it up there for warranty work. Okay, obviously, it's budgeted at 38,000. So we're obviously gonna, I guess we're gonna have to do some type of budget amendment to make up the difference, or do we have that somewhere else in the?
It's not that much money.
Okay, there's enough money elsewhere to,
Yeah, and
okay.
other things in that department aren't gonna be spent.
All right, I will move we accept the $39,442 bid from Jeff Barnes Chevrolet. Got a second from Scott, any discussion?
One question, is this, are we adding another truck, or is this a replacement vehicle?
I think this is a replacement, isn't it?
I was gonna say, I think one of them the last time.
Yeah, we're
mentioned was 10
auctioning.
years old.
We're auctioning a truck right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read
That's
that.
my question.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. All right, reduction in bonding Woodlands at Nottingham Phase 3. We had a packet
Yep.
here on that one. The requested reduction is $490,850. The recommended release is $335,850. I will move we release as recommended. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Yes. Scott?
Well, the one thing I noticed, under the notes, it says 10% of the money needs to be held, but it's gonna be released in November. So is that part of the 335,000?
Yeah, I had the same, I had a good question about how that's,
Yeah, 10% is 206,075, and then you have the grading of 100,000.
So is there, I mean, that's the one-year warranty, but since they haven't finished the project, you're gonna release money prior to the rails to trails portion being done, right?
We'll have
So
to
wouldn't
see
the
when-
warranty still have to
We'll have to see when
extend?
that time comes, if that's the time, I guess.
I'm just asking,
Right.
I would assume that it would. So where's the extra 35,850? Or actually, it's gonna be a little less than that, it's like
I say there's,
28 something.
There's sediment control, they did not get a hold of the sediment control at the county. They're the ones who determine whether to release that or not, so you have 55,000 pending for sediment control. I think everything
Sediment
else-
control or landscaping?
Sediment control.
Yeah, so-
You'll see in the right column, you'll see pending next to it.
Oh, I see the pending, but the amount's only 28,000 difference, so that's 55,000.
Take a brief pause while we check our calculators.
What am I not understanding here?
He's gonna do that. I'm gonna do that.
Troublemaker.
So remind me what's the discrepancy we're chasing down?
So you have 335 that's recommended release of the total 490 that's remaining.
Yep.
And that's 155.
That's 154, 150.
I think Councilman Helt's gonna win. He's doing a lot of scribbling over here.
No, Farrah's using an abacus.
I got a slide rule here.
click,
so-
click.
Because I'm gonna have a follow-up question on the trails. I mean, the folks in Nottingham have been waiting since 2008 for their,
Well, that's what the hundred's
That's
sitting
what
there
you're
about.
retaining, the 100.
Right, the
for
100's
down
there for that. That doesn't get released until they do that, but the 206 does, and so the 206 plus 100.
and how long do the residents of Nottingham have to wait before they get what was promised? I mean, at what point do we seize the bond and complete the work?
Well, you'd only get 100
Well, hence,
if this goes through.
are we released, I mean, if that work is more than 100,
Right. It's almost a discount not to do the work, and therefore the residents would end up being penalized for it never being finished in the first place. So I would ask, does it cost more than $100,000 to do it?
So we're still holding 361,000.
Out of,
I know.
I'm sorry. You have, right now, balance on hand, if you look at the bottom, total on hand is 696,000. And then take the release recommended, 335.
so you're doing 335 out of the 696.
Right, so you have 361,000 on hand.
And I think Rob can probably maybe answer some of these questions.
Yeah, it has been a long time, but I think it's worth noting, many of you at the table weren't here during the time when this project was delayed. Previous administrations did not want trails to nowhere. They already have enough complaints and problems with those outlying areas. So the project under previous administration, other past mayors and councils didn't want to deal with those trails going to nowhere. So now is actually the perfect time to be talking about this with rails to trails becoming a fruition. That was a dream 18, 19 years ago when we planned this project. And it was a great idea. Everybody was talking rails to trails. Oh yeah, okay, we've got a project, we can connect to rails to trails. The problem with over the time was these trails were going to go nowhere other than straight to your sewage treatment plant. And there was fear that that would create problems policing and getting back there. So the other issue that came up at that time was the MDE came in and said, no, you can't have the pond. You need to put a stream restoration back, get rid of that, which then also created some issues for that trail system. So we are fully prepared to move forward on it, especially now with the rails to trails becoming very viable. The other part that, as Barney pointed out too, there's now connectivity through Twin Arch Crossing. There is a deeded parcel now that connects to rails to trails there. So residents of Nottingham and Twin Arch can actually go back and forth.
Excellent.
So the timing is definitely now. It's not something we ever intended to, or not intended to do. So this is the time to do it, and we'll be working with town staff.
Sounds good.
Yeah, what you're saying is correct, I remember that.
Yeah, any other questions? I just want to make sure everybody was clear on that. This is not something we're trying to get out of. We fully support the program. We wouldn't have suggested it if we
It
didn't.
goes back to the damn beaver discussion.
Yeah, those damn beavers. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Right, yeah, right.
I believe we will be back based on the fact that sediment control didn't respond. So you'll probably see us again next month
For that
cleaning up
other
some of those other numbers.
55,000.
Yeah, that delta might get cleaned up next month anyway.
Okay.
Is
Thank you, Rob.
Right, so the amount that was fixed, just curious though, the amount that was fixed for grading for rails, for the trail, that's
That's 100,000. That's being held until the rail to trail part's done.
And that's a fixed number, that was per agreement when this community was first formed, we're not flexible
Well, that
on
was,
that?
well, I
Can't-
mean,
couldn't be, right?
that was the town back in, the party was good enough to
2008.
dig us up in '08. The council voted to withhold that to cover the trails.
How was that number figured, Barney, back in 2008? What was the basis behind the number?
I think that, honestly, I didn't do any numbers myself on that, but I think the 100,000 was something that was left in grading, and it was determined that would be an
Enough?
appropriate amount.
Yeah,
No more.
And I actually don't recall the exact origination of that number, but I know through the history of a long project like this, anytime there's been stuff kind of lingering, it sort of got kicked down the road. And at this point, they said, oh, the council made a decision. That's fine, we'll let it keep riding with the rest of the sections, but we're gonna make sure we have a stopgap in there. So that number, I don't know where it came from. It should be more than sufficient, probably double to what it's gonna cost.
I'm sorry, Rob, how do you envision this section of rails to trails running through Nottingham? How do you envision that?
That's something we're working with staff on. The construction drawings currently show it, Barney, correct me if I'm wrong, it has been a while, going through behind the stormwater management pond, which is below the pond, across the old dam, over to that area on the other side,
Yeah.
loops around and then connects to the old rail line.
Okay, right, because right now, if you're trying to go across the dam, especially kids with bicycles, it's hard. I mean,
Right.
it's almost impossible to get across.
Correct.
Because there's all that riprap there.
Correct.
Okay.
So Larry's actually been needling me and feeding me information on some nice span bridges that we could possibly use in that area. So we'll be looking at that to get across there. But then again, that's going to be an MDE kind of work with thing.
Yeah.
But just the other part of that is that parcel, what's it, like 7 or 12 acres? It's a pretty large chunk.
Where the pond used to be?
Where the pond used to be. I think it's, 7,
Goes back into the forest area.
Yeah,
So-
that whole area will be town property, along with the rail trail. So you'll own the road bed up to, I guess even with the back of Nottingham Village. That part of the road bed is not all Mr. Nils. That part is part of Nottingham that gets deeded, it's the same piece of property we're talking about,
And
where the trail ends.
And then the former pond really now is just stormwater management?
No. The former pond's just a stream, it's just wetlands, it's natural. The stormwater management pond above was for the subdivision.
Okay.
So this will actually give us about a third of that road, or a third of that, that rails of trails. So we're actually gaining rails of trails in a sense.
Right.
Where the property gets turned over.
And Barney pointed out, the preliminary plan actually shows the trail coming from the stormwater management pond up behind the pool up to Loxley, between Woodlands and the fields. And as we talked today, actually, a previous town engineer said they didn't want to see paving over top of it. It was along a sewer easement. They didn't want to see paving over top of the sewer easement, which is the only reason I can believe it was taken out by, we'll put it in, we want to put it in, if that's where we end up.
Yeah,
So,
'cause the sewer-
we always presumed we were going to put that path in there.
Right, sewer easements between the now wetlands and the road, that's where the sewer easement runs.
Yeah, it runs from Loxley down through, there's a little ball field there where the kids play, and then it runs behind the pool down to the stormwater management pond. There's a bench cut in there, it's graded nice, gentle walking slope. One of the previous town engineers didn't want us to pave it. And Barney kindly pointed out, which I agree, most of the sewer and water is under paved areas anyway. So, but that would be our plan, would be to connect Loxley through to rails to trails, basically.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, I've ridden my bike the hard way through there. It'd be nice to actually have it paved.
Well, private property?
We joked about that. Yes, we have.
Bruce Walls, 905 Kingsbridge Terrace in Nottingham. I'd just like to point out that the kids use that riffraff. They cross it all the time to go from the townhouses over to the thing, and it is a danger. I walk my dog down there, and I see the kids trying to, I've actually done it myself, to go walk along the sewer plant road to, in the summertime with the dog and things. So I think it's something that
It's a
needs
nice
to be-
place to walk.
Yeah, I think it's something that needs to be addressed, or because there is a danger with going over that riffraff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
riprap.
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 Riff-raff is in my neighborhood.
All right.
Leave that alone.
I've moved that we release $335,850.
I'll second.
I believe we had a second already, didn't we? Okay, Bob has seconded before. Okay, any more discussion?
Did Scott get the answers he wanted?
I got it.
Yeah, you said so.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Reduction in bonding, Twin Arch Crossing, Phase 5. I'm looking for that number here.
It's 232,000.
There it is, they requested 732,492.60.
They want all of it.
And the recommended release is $232,869.50. I will move we release as recommended. Do I have a second? Second from Bob. Is there any discussion?
Okay, yeah, no.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. All right, budget workshops. Need to schedule some dates for that.
So we're talking April, correct?
Well,
I'm
we
out of
get the
pocket.
budget together. I'm
I'm
looking
out of
forward to
pocket.
seeing
Yeah,
it.
I
to
know.
the 21st.
Charlene, me and you this month. We're gonna be best pals.
And I think I just suggested a little bit more to
I
that.
actually want to get a printout of that. I took some notes.
Okay, I get it too. Hey, suggestions only.
Peter,
Great,
I think
great
what we did
suggestion.
last year was every 2 weeks we met, council meeting, budget workshop, council meeting, budget workshop.
I think it did take 2 meetings.
Yes, I think it
So
took 2 also.
so if we follow that schedule, yeah, we could do, we got a meeting April 6th. If we follow that plan, our next budget meeting would be April 20th. And the problem is that's getting close to the May,
Election.
well, no, the May meeting, because we want to have everything wrapped up to vote on it
Right.
typically at the May meeting, otherwise Debbie gets really upset.
Yeah, I do.
See, she agrees.
Well, I mean, I just want to mention, the latest, I can get it in the absolute latest, I can have it in the newspaper, would be on the 30th, which means I need to get it in the newspaper by probably the 27th or 24th.
Of April.
Let's say the 24th of April, yeah. So everything needs to be ready to roll by then, please.
We want to keep you happy.
Thank you.
I mean, I guess we would probably introduce it, will we introduce it on the 6th?
Of April, yeah.
Yeah, on the 6th of April, and then we'd have meetings to modify it and amend it and everything, and then we would actually vote on it
On the 4th.
on the 4th. So basically,
I'll be here.
that's what it is. How soon will the budget actually be ready?
By the end of March.
It's coming along. It's almost ready. It's just, things come in daily.
Right. I mean, because I'm saying we could start maybe in March. If it's ready earlier, we could call a meeting in March.
Even, can I suggest even if it's only available preliminary, it might be worth having a meeting if the council sort of is okay with some of the suggestions I had about the cycle. If we at least had a meeting in March to try to really prioritize.
Well, let's not put the cart before the
When you
horse.
think it's ready,
Yeah, I need to make a
it's
submittal.
yours,
Yeah,
when
I
you
need to
think
make a
it's ready.
submittal, and at that point, you all
I
can.
mean, when you think it's ready, that's fine.
I'll do my best to move it quickly, but we need to get some numbers before I question the numbers.
You
and send it
want
down.
to, how about tentatively Wednesday, the 8th
Of March?
of April? We'll meet on the 6th, we'll get our budget then, we'll introduce it. We could start on the 8th, and then maybe make, because
You're gonna split it by departments again, or, you know how last time I think we did?
Whatever we did last time worked well,
Yeah.
don't you think?
yeah,
And you did split it by departments.
okay. Yeah, and then we'd have some departments in on the 8th.
And if it went quickly, you were ready to take more.
Yeah, we actually had a couple of departments ahead in case we
That
needed.
In
way
case we
staff
move
can be
quickly.
here, so
Right,
they can
right.
answer the questions.
True.
Right, I'm just saying, April 8th, middle of the week, I don't know what's,
Do 8:15, just do the Wednesdays and say, set the first 2 Wednesdays, the third if we need it, right? Just do every Wednesday.
You
yeah,
gotta
the
be
8th.
careful because you got water on Wednesdays.
What
That's
day,
emergency
that's why I'm asking,
on
what days do they
Wednesday.
meet?
Yeah, we can make.
First and the 4th on Wednesdays is water.
Okay, well, that leaves Wednesday the
Every
15th.
other month is sanitation recycling.
Right. Wednesdays is a busy day.
Most
Okay.
important commission.
Can they meet downstairs? That room's available now.
That's one. One of my favorite.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm fine for the 8th, but
budget takes
I hope
forever.
people will do the next one.
I mean, they might have to reschedule, I know, that causes a real mess, I know, but, I mean, the committees, sorry guys, but I mean, just
They
to
could
get
always
this budget done.
push
Well,
them
the
to the
15th.
Well, Monday,
The 15th is open, that's the third Wednesday, that one's open.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
the next one would be, the
you're gonna,
22nd would be.
you're gonna have conflicts everywhere.
One of maybe 15th and the 20th, because in theory, the second Monday, we always kind of have hovering out there as a possible second council meeting, so I'm thinking the 15th and the 20th, that's a Wednesday and a Monday.
Are we the 3rd or the 4th? We're the
4th, you're the, let's see, you'll be the
Okay.
27th.
Yeah,
So
that
the
gets you
20th
around
is
planning.
open, the
It's a week
15th is
before
open.
planning. And that gives us basically a week and a half
Yeah.
if we really get stuck and have to do another day.
Well, the one concern I have is I think we're gonna need an extra meeting to get through prioritizing reserves, I think we need an extra meeting. Because if we don't come up with a reserve policy, if we don't look hard at what the wish list is and how we can possibly fund it, if we can't do some of the things I've suggested, I don't know how we're ever gonna move forward on community center and Flatiron Building, things like that. So I'm suggesting that we need an extra meeting in there somewhere to try to resolve some of that. Because, I mean, I really
No,
was.
I guess, you know, I mean, that's what I'm saying, if we need a third meeting, we have a third meeting. I don't know that it's gonna be,
Yeah, because the 20th, you'll still have 2 weeks until the 4th.
We'd
You'll have
squeeze
a
it in,
2-week, April
Okay,
20th
that's
is
fine.
is a
As long
Monday.
as we're leaving enough time to squeeze that in, I think.
well, that's why I'm
Two in
saying,
a
that,
week.
that leaves us almost 2 weeks to stick another day in
Okay.
somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at my.
What are the
15th
dates?
and the 20th.
Wednesday, April 15th, Monday, April 20th.
But I don't know where you get 2 weeks to squeeze something in when I have to have the figures by the 24th.
Well, you,
She's gotta publish.
No, we'll have already introduced it.
So it'll be okay?
Yeah, I think once we introduce it, you can publish, can't you?
Right.
Because we can,
You're asking what now?
Yeah.
After introduction?
Right, after
Before
introduction, they
adoption.
can still change things.
Right.
As long as the bottom line doesn't change. You can change inside, but you can't be changing your tax rate or anything.
no.
Why are we negating the first week in April? Why did we negate the 8th?
We can get to it.
there are a bunch of other meetings that night.
Well, how about the
Grab a
9th,
Tuesday.
or Thursday,
Grab a
or
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Well, yeah, water and sewer next month will be on the 1st.
Yeah, I suggested the 8th, and I was told it didn't work, there were other
Let's
meetings.
wait.
Let's do,
The 15th is,
Who's on
Yeah,
the
I'd
18th?
suggested starting the 8th, but
Let's
I
start the
was
8th.
told there were other,
Is the 8th
other.
okay? How about Bob, is the 8th okay?
yeah, the
All right.
8th's okay with me.
All right,
All right.
anybody have any problem with the 8th?
All right, 8th, 20th, and then we can fall back on the 20,
You're doing the 8th and the 20th now?
Or
well,
15th?
or 8th and the 15th, 8th and the 15th.
Can I get a read back on
The
that?
1st and 22nd are taken.
let's do the 8th. It sounds like the 8th and the 15th. And then
8th
you
and the
got- you got
15th, then we
room.
can, and we got
Then
room
you
to,
have room.
then we got
And
room.
then, yeah, then you've got
What
almost
time, 7
3
o'clock? Peter?
7
Is there any
o'clock,
comment
guys?
on that?
7 o'clock,
7 o'clock?
gentlemen?
Gentlemen, 7 o'clock?
7
Can-
o'clock's fine with me.
Can we
Pat,
make it 6:40?
can you make it
Good,
7?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right,
6:40.
Shar, you good?
I know you have a commute.
Oh, yeah, I make 7.
It's
I'm
the 8th
HOV
and the
lane.
14th, right?
8th and the
We
15th.
have to advertise for these.
Elizabeth asked that the other night, come back from the.
All right,
HOV.
8th,
Yeah.
so that's what we're gonna start with, 8th and the 15th. Okay, good. Downtown parking and economic development discussion and referral. Chris?
Bob, actually.
I presented a very fast framework. Our last EDC meeting went until 11:30 at night. There was a lot to discuss. We'd been snowed out, bumped up, bumped back, and so we really had one meeting for two. I talked to Melissa today, and we'll probably have a better discussion on it at the next EDC meeting. We just really didn't get time to talk. We were addressing budget issues and that kind of stuff, and it just took a lot of time.
But we did have an opportunity at the mayor's forum to discuss. We received some input from
Right.
residents, actually two, during our discussion. And I also have the old survey from the
Right, and
downtown
there's-
businesses. I'll
there's-
turn over to you.
There's actually a lot of information out on the table right now about parking. And it's amazing, we were sitting here talking about parking, and Pat's telephone rang, and somebody that wanted to have a conversation about parking downtown.
Very interesting.
So it's something that's being worked on,
Bob,
it's nothing definitive right now.
have you included, there was a downtown parking study?
Yes, we've
You have that?
we've got all that.
Okay.
We've got, man, I got aerial shots and everything of all the parking downtown.
All right. We said for them, move on to, if you're done, Bob, we'll move on to deed acceptance.
Yeah,
You don't say, okay.
yeah.
Deed acceptance, Sterling Glen Phase 2, Plat 1, Open Space E, wastewater pumping station, number 12. Tom, is there anything in this deed that is of anything unusual that we should not accept it, or?
No, that's pretty standard.
All right, I will move we accept this deed. Do I have a second?
His turn.
Ken seconded that one. The kilt wearer. Any,
That's Larry, we call him Larry.
Any discussion?
Brother Darrell.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Our deed has been accepted. All right, mayor's report.
I'm not going to give a formal mayor's report. It will be printed and passed around. I do want to note two very important items. The first is, tomorrow, Miss Helen Simpson will be celebrating her 98th birthday.
Oh, my.
So she's really been a gem of Mount Airy.
I would have never guessed she was that old.
Okay.
She looks a lot younger.
She looks
I
like...
see it, I see it.
So, and her son is in the audience, and her daughter-in-law is... Interesting story about Helen. Whenever you move in Mount Airy, it triggers your water bill to change, and it also triggers a welcome package. I show up at Helen Simpson's door one day with a welcome package in Wildwood, and she said, well, Mayor Rockenberg, thank you very much for welcoming me to the neighborhood, but I've been here 94 years. And that was my first meeting with Helen Simpson. She is truly a gem, and a very happy birthday to Helen Simpson. The second issue that is not as important as Helen Simpson is clearing your sidewalks of snow, especially on Main Street. I don't have the exact numbers, so if somebody catches me after the meeting and I'm wrong, but we had close to 100 warnings have been issued, and we were issuing fines today. You will be fined if you do not clear your sidewalks, especially on Main Street. We've been a little bit laxed in that enforcement. This ice has put a little ringer on it. It's a little difficult to get that ice, but please clear your sidewalks. It is a town regulation, and you will be fined. I do have one commission appointment. I wasn't aware of that. Larry Hushauer for Parks and Recs. I don't know, guys. We may want to think about this one. We may want to think about
I move we
this.
accept the mayor's recommendation as
I'll
presented.
second that.
That concludes my report.
with a kill.
All right, all in favor of Larry Hushhour being reappointed? There we go. Okay, it's unanimous. All right, thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
EDC, Water and Sewer.
Okay, EDC, our last meeting, our January/February meeting was February 11th. Spent a lot of time on budget. Spent a lot of time trying to work through the job description of a downtown manager.
Good.
Okay, and, you know, we've got some ideas on that. Larry met us about the caboose. We talked about the Center Street Expansion Fund. The Shop Mount Airy app, we're working on the establishing a business in Mount Airy brochure and updating it. And that's pretty much it for EDC. Next meeting is March the 25th. And that's 7:30 here at Town Hall. Water and Sewer, we approved the FY 2016 allocation under the 2020 plan to be combined with the leftover from 2015-19 127 unallocated, total of 39,127 per staff's request. We are also working on the fiscal year 2016 budget. And the average daily flow was 0.677 million gallons per day. And I have two other meetings we went to here. Hold on. We had a mayor's meeting. Pat asked me to attend a mayor's meeting with the new county executive on the Frederick County side. We're really going to have to keep our eyes open on this tax equity program. They're trying to change some things. Right now, all they're doing is trying to change if there's any increase to the town. And you guys should have gotten an email of what our numbers, you didn't get an email of what our numbers are this year?
Did you get?
Last Thursday.
Yeah, no, we got it. I sent it to Charlie.
Okay.
400 something, 400 some thousand.
Okay. And that, I'm sorry, 420?
428.
Yeah, and that's about 30,000 down from last year. I think last year was 458. But if there's any substantial increases to a municipality, they now have 3 to 5 years to catch up with that increase. So, nothing real crazy there. I was a little concerned about another thing. State Highway is out there spending all kinds of money on new signs. We actually have in Carroll County, didn't inform us, but we have new signs, for example, the golf courses and everything. They used to try to put things on one sign, and now State Highway's going out there and changing all of the signs. The people from Emmitsburg were not happy about this because they're going to take down, for example, the grotto signs and everything, and they say 32% of the visitors to the grotto see the sign for the grotto and go there today. They're just driving up the road.
Didn't they? Emmitsburg and another town, I think, actually filed suit to
Yeah,
stop SHA from changing all
where's
their
Kennard
signs.
from? Thurmont. Thurmont
yeah.
is very unhappy too, because there's two sections to Cunningham Falls State Park. And right now, the sign leads you to the falls, and I don't know what they call the other section, okay? That'll be taken down. Golf courses will no longer be designated as, say, Hope Valley Golf Course. It'll just be a golf course sign. Well, it causes you a problem when you get off the highway here, because you got Shaladon go this way, Rattlewood go this way. So everybody has some issues with this, and we're spending money in state highway when we don't have our highway user revenues back up to where they should be. Okay, and that's the part that ticks me off the most.
Well, while you're on that subject, I'm not real pleased about the Westminster sign being right in the middle of Mount Airy.
Exactly.
True.
And this was all done, they went through Carroll County to deal with this, and I don't believe we were ever notified.
Heather had some conversations with them.
Okay. But the rest of the communities are raising little hell, and they've decided to back off for right now. So that was with the county executive, and we told her that the former Board of County Commissioners used to have monthly meetings with the municipalities, because there's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to work out. We always had interesting things. She wasn't planning on doing that, but maybe she's going to do it now.
Good job.
Okay, then on February the 26th, I had an MML meeting. In June, and I believe it is June the 15th, Monday night, June the 15th, is that when we're doing our combined meeting here at Lorienzo's?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we have our MML, Frederick County, Carroll County combined meeting here on Monday night, June the 15th. It was kind of funny, because they asked, we had at the MML meeting, we had a representative from the executive's office, the Frederick County Executive's office, and also Bud Otis, who's the chair of the council now, was there. And so they were saying, gosh, we'd like for you to come to all these meetings, except when we ask you not to. And I have a problem with that, okay? I mean, I'm not going to speak any differently at that meeting, whether the executive's sitting there or the president or any representative. I do not think it is right to exclude anybody from these meetings. I stood up and I said that. I was obviously the only one in the room that felt that way. They didn't boo, they didn't throw stuff, but it was very quiet after that. And I honestly feel that way. If you're going to deal with these people, you don't exclude them from meetings.
Are you talking about county meetings? Are you
No,
talking
these
about
are
MML?
these are MML meetings where we're going to invite Bud Otis unless we don't. And if we don't invite you, please don't show up, because we're going to talk about you. And I just, that's the impression I got from what they said, and I just don't agree with that under any circumstances. Our next MML meeting is April the 23rd. That's a Thursday night. And I think that's it.
All righty.
Unless you'd like me to give sanitation.
Go ahead.
No, I don't.
Beautification Parks and Rec. Beautification did not meet. It got snowed out. Its next meeting will be the 17th of March. Parks had a couple of things on its agenda. One thing Parks would like to see as we're going through the budget process is we would like to see the job title, not really going to affect the dollars really, but the job title of the skate park attendants to be expanded to basically be park attendants. So that basically they can be to some extent responsible for the whole park, kind of
Makes sense.
expand their
It
things
makes
that's already
sense.
there.
Yeah.
So it's not really,
Can we just go ahead and implement that, Monica?
it's a job description thing, just
Just go ahead
expand
and
them
make
to,
the change.
Okay, that'll be
They get pay
good.
raise? They get pay raise?
No, because they become less
That's a no.
specialized.
They're
They
just
become
less
less-
specialized.
right?
They're gonna be there the same hours.
They get a promotion,
Yeah.
right?
No, but we're giving them an opportunity to make their job more valuable.
One of the things we looked at, and we may eventually, come and say we want to expand their hours, but for now, we just want to see that expanded to a full park job. We looked at, very interesting, at the ideas of putting a soccer field in East West Park. Brian Johnson came in with aerial views of the park, and there's actually locations there where we think there could be a full-size soccer field put in back in the woods, kind of, in an area that used to be cut down.
Don't worry about the trees.
Yeah, well, actually, it's an area that
Run right through 'em.
that's been cleared. It was cleared a number of years ago, and our guys had stopped mowing it and let it start to grow back. But Brian went back there and looked at it and said, we should be able to put a soccer, there's enough field for soccer. We'd have to bring equipment in and level it, but it's not that bad. So we're looking at that. We may at some point come through with that. The other thing that you're gonna see in the budget is, the big park for next budget year, at least the plan is for really a substantial rebuild of Prospect Park. And that's, you'll see that mostly in the budget that's been passed on to you. Basically, we want to, go through Prospect Park and repair the walls and repair all the other stuff. There's a lot of things in there that are, falling down. There's a concern that.
The equipment's new there, and the
Yes.
pavilion is new, but the other stuff.
Correct. Well,
other stuff.
we want to fix up the bathrooms and, basically do,
The monument's being redone by civic groups.
Okay,
And
great.
you'll have to be down there because your name will be on it.
Let me
But,
know.
I just found out.
And another thing, there's a concern too, that at some point, when you get to the end of the pond, there's that steel shaft that the water spills into that goes out. At some point, that's gonna give way. In fact, I know a pond not that far from here where that happened. The thing gave way one day and all the fish, all the water went out. And so, long-term plan, we're gonna have to look at having that shored up. But Brian's got some plans, substantial plans to really redo that park. He wants to redo the pier and all that and fix it all up, yeah?
Was there a seepage issue, something down there with some seepage where there was a civil engineering issue down there a few years back? I don't know if it's ever resolved.
Wasn't something going on down there when we replaced the sewer line down there? The one that comes under-
We did
There's a
redo a line
spring or
there.
something
Well,
down
there are,
there. Has
but
it gone away?
there-
Has the problem gone away?
There are a bunch of springs down there. That pipe that sticks out of the hill.
I think that problem you're talking about is going away, yeah.
Yeah.
Good, okay.
That pipe that sticks out of the hill that you see water constantly coming out of, that's coming from springs that are under the
Right.
play sets and everything.
Right.
When you dig, I was down there when we dug the holes for those play sets. You dig a hole and it fills with water. And we were in a drought when they put those in. I remember when we put them in, I came up to Mark, I said, there's water in here. And he said, it fills up as soon as you dig a hole.
Okay.
There's a
All
lot
right,
of
so
water
that
down
issue
there.
was
Make a
resolved.
well.
Okay.
There's
so
a lot of
that's-
water
I
down
think we
there.
found our well.
Another 20,000 gallons over there.
What would that be, number 12, 13?
There's a lot of water down there.
Good, thanks.
So that's what
Station
Parks,
on the playground.
that's what Parks is looking at. Next Parks meeting will be on the 19th of March in this room, and that would be Parks and Rec. So let's move on to, and you guys heard the rail trail stuff already. Sanitation, recycling, or recycling and sanitation.
Did we skip planning?
Oh, wait a minute, Debbie, I'm sorry guys, it's not in the right order. I'm being flagged about a red thing on here under Parks. See, that's why I'm glad it's on here.
She's brutal.
I got this special one with red on it.
I don't have that.
Well, the problem was, it was not in the right location. We had previously approved, the Prudence Lodge, they took over the old church, is it Ridge Road?
Yes.
Is that the?
Yeah, Love's
Down on
Church.
Ridge Road?
Love's Church.
They've taken that over, and we had originally approved closing the street for them for a short period of time. Back in October of 14, they actually didn't do it then, they're actually going to need the street closing on May 9th at 10 a.m. And they've just asked us basically to change the date of their approval. So I will move, we change the date of their approval to May 9th of this year at 10 a.m. from the prior approval on October 14th.
Second.
Got a second there? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Now we can move on to sanitation recycling. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
And so,
Go.
no planning? You're skipping?
I'll come back. We'll come back.
Okay. I guess Chris
Did I
wants
skip
the
planning?
last, yeah.
Planning
Oh, I did.
Planning Commission.
You're right. I crossed one line too many. Chris?
Oh, okay.
Figured you talked enough tonight. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I've got a slide.
I was too eager crossing lines here.
Yeah, we'll get you. The planning is working on setting up some joint planning commission meetings between Carroll County and Frederick The idea is, of course, with us sitting in between the two counties, to start to try to coordinate some of our planning moves and our planning understandings, which is good, so stay tuned to that. Something that at least I learned, I don't know if, that I thought was of interest, the Frederick County planner, when he briefed us about all the growth occurring in Frederick County, one thing that came up, somebody had asked a question about wells. With all the growth occurring in Frederick County, the folks who have outlying properties, what happens to them if their well runs dry? Turns out, in Frederick County, they don't, when they do planning for all these large developments, they don't pay attention to groundwater recharge. So you could have, you could imagine a case where you've been living in a property all your life and all of a sudden a gigantic development comes up, they cover all the ground, and then your groundwater recharge has been changed and your well could potentially run dry. Just something that we had picked up. That I thought was of concern. Heather's not here this evening, but the sign ordinance. So one of the things we did with the sign ordinance was postpone it for the master plan, and we haven't brought that back up. It's in the council's hands right now. So, and Heather's not here this evening, but next council meeting, I'll ask, we need to get the sign ordinance back on, because that was postponed.
So, yeah, and I thought, just going back to that, because I kind of transitioned that off.
Yeah.
I think where it was left was the council had requested at the time to have a workshop presentation on what all the different signs mean before we start discussing the ordinance.
I do remember asking questions.
What is a banner versus a box sign versus a...
Right, because I actually went around town, took pictures and said, are these box signs? And Heather said no, and I was
So
like, they look like it to me.
at the time, it was kind of said back to planning / P&Z, come up with something, and I know Heather was swamped. And that's where we left it, was that somebody was
She's in
going
the
to come
middle of
back and
master
present,
plan.
right.
Yeah.
Somebody was
Like,
going to
this
come
is
back
the
and
way-
present it before we started discussing it.
And Scott, actually, that's exactly where it is. So the council, so the request is that the council should set up a joint session with planning. Now, do we want to do it maybe before
You
the
want to do
next
it on
council?
the 8th? You want to do it on the 15th? You want to do it on the 20th?
I would
Just
make
asking.
a recommendation that we wait until after the election to get that done, after the
All right.
election, after the budget, because also part of that sign ordinance was the political sign
Yes.
quickie that we passed.
Yeah,
Okay, so
okay.
after next Monday, you don't want to go changing things in the middle of the stream. The rules are the rules through
Could be
this
fine.
election.
Yeah, good point, Bob, and that was also brought up at planning. that we
Right.
shouldn't- Okay, without objection, I guess then we'll just push that past it, okay.
Thank
push it past it. The planning commission also discussed the mixed-use ordinance, so that's getting close to completion, and that's looking promising. Last but not least, at the IDA's request, the mayor and I met with the IDA. So the IDA, Carroll County's Independent Development Authority. At their request, the mayor and I met them, and we had a discussion with them about the Harrison-LaShire property. The IDA shared a few things. Number one, they are starting to get antsy, so to speak, because they want some conclusion or some solid plan about what the town's commitment is on Harrison-LaShire. Number two, the IDA shared, the property and how many acres and whatnot. There is I'll call it the mystery. There is a mystery 40 acres of land within the Harrison-LaShire. So if you would imagine Harrison-LaShire property, the lower part again is the idea of the employment campus. The upper part, and the upper part's north of the power lines. I think they're 230 or 500 kV lines, but north of the power lines. So north of the power lines on the east side, that's the space that's been dedicated to the town for the park, should this go through.
And
On
what is that, 80 acres or something?
Plus or minus,
something in
approximately.
that neighborhood, yeah.
Just to the west of that is this mystery 40 acres. So again, north of the power lines to the west is 40 acres that's undesignated. So one of the requests that the mayor and I gave the IDA, they'll resolve it in their meeting in March, was that 40 acres, that also, it can't remain a mystery. That has to get dedicated to the town. So the IDA will, when they meet next in March, they'll make a decision on whether or what to do with that 40 acres. But the mayor and I relayed to them that it was our belief from the planning commission perspective, from the town's perspective, the council's perspective, that we wouldn't move into any sort of annexation agreement if we didn't know what this mystery 40 acres was
So
going
the
to be used
nuclear
for.
power plant is not going right there?
No.
More
it's not.
importantly, the fire company is not going, because they didn't know anything about it.
But did the IDA address all the other issues from the past with regards to, you know, having the rough-ins for the sewer and the water?
It wasn't in that detail.
Did they give a site plan of here's the types of things, not a
Right. So
full
we're
up,
understood.
but here's
So-
the concept?
Right, so after we told, the mayor and I told the IDA, well, the 40 acres we want dedicated to the town, the conversation then moved more towards, okay, how does this develop? What does the ordinance look like? So there's been some confusion between the IDA and the town about the usage and the ordinance and what. So what we've asked the IDA for is to come back to the town with some high-level bullet points. Look, what do you believe, IDA, that you need to make this economically viable for the town? And then, once the IDA comes back with their bullet points, their high-level concept, that goes to planning, and then planning will try to match up and work with the IDA with our OPE ordinance against what the IDA is looking for. Now, at a very high level, the IDA was very clear. They want an employment campus. The idea of the employment campus would be high-end professional jobs.
Medical offices.
Are they putting a hospital in?
No.
Okay.
No, high-end professionals, but Scott, I don't want to hit.
No, I'm just saying, they've bounced around with different concepts.
Understood it. So what we're trying to do here is, and that's the reason why I don't want to, that's the reason why I don't want to address spot points is I don't want to put words in their mouth. What I want them to do and what they're going to do is come up with high level, for example, one of the things the mayor said is, look, you need a 200-foot setbacks and berms to protect the surrounding area. IDA came back right and said, yeah, that's fine, it's acceptable. So we want them to come back with some very high level details of what they want, and then that goes to planning when we can resolve the two. So I thought it was a very productive meeting.
Yeah, just real quick to touch on Scott's points. I don't think we got a good representation at the last meeting from Mr. Isaac. They did clarify industrial is not going in there. We also asked, and thanks to Mr. Scranton, who showed me that you definitely master plan these types of things, that there is standards set on this property. So we did ask them to make sure they come forward with a master plan so you know what it's going to look like overall, and there's limits to what can be there. And they also really wanted to meet with Chris and I just to see what our sticking points may be before they invested money in an actual site plan that they will bring to an open meeting. They will bring the planning. But we discussed some of the sticking points, and we think we've been able to work them out, so they will move forward on investing the money in that site plan to touch on some of the issues that you so duly or wisely noted.
Yeah, and Scott, one of the things that the mayor points about points is, for example, we really relayed to the IDA that we would do nothing to endanger downtown. We don't want any.
Nothing to endanger downtown and to protect the surrounding citizens. They talked about berming and trees and screening, all good stuff.
I see Scott's got the
I do have
the stick.
The talking
right
stick.
now. So the only other thing I would request, since I'm not part of that meeting and haven't been since it's happened, but I was involved with it for a very long time, is to readdress with them the amount of water that they're proposing to give us, because that was a point of contention that the numbers were changing constantly out of the
that will have to
wells.
be sorted out.
At first we said, hey, we're getting the wells great, we're getting all this parkland great,
120,
and then all of a sudden, I
100.
saw every number decline that came out of a discussion. So I would just ask,
Good.
in those discussions,
Yeah,
find out
yeah.
what those final numbers are being proposed.
Right, and all those details will certainly be part of it, but again, this is, for lack of a better term, sort of a small reset to try to reach mutual understanding. But I think the mayor and I walked away from the meeting with the impression that, A, the IDA is now getting ready, they want us to do something, and B, they're willing to work with the town.
Bob's next.
And I just want to make sure that we don't regulate this out of existence. Some stuff that we've heard at some of the planning commission meetings that I just don't want to regulate them so they can't do anything. You know.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll ask, is there a time frame, since you said they're getting antsy, that they're working to right now in which we've got a deadline? Because we've been doing this for a very long time now, and it's the first I've heard that they're antsy when we've been antsy for a while, so I just want to know what timeline are they working to?
They didn't give us a particular deadline or a timeline, but I think both sides want to see some progress on what an ordinance might look like. So.
We'll go through a couple of meetings, and then there's a big lapse between meetings, and then
Yep.
you go to
People
a
get
couple of
elected
meetings, and then another lapse.
Yeah, I don't think I think there'll be,
Right.
there's going to be continuity now. That lapse.
Yeah, the meetings are being set more formal now than they were originally, I think.
Right, and yeah. So anyway, and that's it. That's all I have.
All right, now, recycling and sanitation.
Bob? Thank you.
Yeah,
So,
trash was picked up.
yep, trash was picked up. I know that we ended up having the one day that was delayed. Everybody ended up getting the notice through the town. Thank you, town staff, for making sure that that notice was put up. We did not have a sanitation recycling meeting this past month. This coming month, though, in March, we will have our meeting on the 18th at 7 p.m. A couple things we'll be discussing for the budget for consideration will be recycling containers, increasing that number. Also, if we end up trying to augment for the future for any type of contracts with regards to trash recycling, tipping fees, et cetera, we'll need to evaluate those, so we'll discuss that within our
We
group.
need those numbers as soon as possible, even if it's.
We have a meeting on the 18th, Mr. Mayor. You said you have till the end of the month.
Well, yes, but I need your numbers before I can do mine.
Not a problem.
So that'll give me 10 days.
Put in last year's numbers, and we'll tell you what the real numbers are when we get there.
Mary gave me some numbers.
Yeah, Mary is very, very good
Yeah.
about working those numbers out.
Yeah. So, and that.
All right,
Can I make one request to go in the budget? And I think there's only two people in town that this really bothers, and it's me and Pete. We go,
Extra grants collection?
yes, the Saturday collections, there's a point, and I think it's July and August, we only do one pickup in July and one pickup in August.
you shouldn't
And
have
we
to cut
did
your
that-
grass in July and
We
August.
did that years ago to
That's right.
cut the budget, and then all of a
Scorched earth.
sudden, we got this great deal on our trash and recycling, and we intended to add that
So-
back in and never did.
In those numbers that we're talking about for the 18th, that's being
Yeah, and
discussed, because there's other things that we're talking about
It's
too.
like $460, $800.
Are you and Pete the only two that care about it? I'm just,
Huh?
you and Pete?
Well, I'm sure that there's other
We're putting
people
in
that
a
do.
budget just for Bobby and
supposed to
Pete.
use
But
a mulching
Pete
mower.
and I are the ones that
Two
stand up.
houses.
Oh, okay.
It'll be a spot pickup. There'll be a pickup.
I was
truck.
hesitant to say that until you gave me the snow blower, but in the interest of transparency, I'm still going to question.
I'll stop by the pickup truck for 20.
We'll look at that.
Okay,
Councilman King,
thank you.
streets and roads, Ken.
Yes, we had a meeting, and we didn't get snowed out for a change, right? It was close, though.
They plowed the roads so you
It
could
was
get here.
close,
from
yeah,
here,
it was
right?
close. We have a new chairman now, is Tom Fleming. He's chairman of the Streets and Roads, got elected. And Jennifer Smith is a new secretary. Also attended that meeting was Brian Johnson, and we had some good conversation with him concerning the signage that was discussed last meeting over in Sterling Glen. He went over and investigated that and gave his recommendation of what signs should go there and what shouldn't go there. And Jennifer's going to contact the people and give them the recommendations, so that should be all done.
That was the gentleman that
Good.
spoke last
Right,
month.
exactly right.
Good follow-up.
So that should be all taken care of now. Another problem we had was on Center Street. Some people's pulling up Center Street and trying to back in instead of coming down Center Street.
You mean the parking spaces?
Yes.
Oh.
And they're tying up traffic a lot of times. They're trying to back in instead of pulling in. So also we have some long vehicles that are sticking out in the road and causing problems. So Brian has agreed to put up a sign that says head-in parking only with compact cars on some of the spaces up
So we're
there.
gonna kill all the spaces.
For big trucks, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
We have to.
Yeah, just, it's gonna, I don't know what's
For
gonna.
some of the
how many
spaces that are
people pay attention to it,
vulnerable. Some of the vulnerable spaces are
But, yeah,
sticking.
some of them are gonna go up there.
Maybe there should be a sign just for those ones.
And that's the plan.
Yeah, that's just to try to keep them in so people can get by and keep people from going up the hill to backing in. So we'll see what happens with it. So he's gonna put some signs up there for that. And we had a number of issues that he resolved while he was here. We had a very good meeting, and our next meeting is gonna be April 23rd on the Streets and Roads. And just on a personal note, we did have a person pass away this month, Miss Mary Fogel, wife of Lee Fogel. And she was very active in the town. She's going to be really missed in town. She was in fact active in a lot of things in town, the Fire Company, Qantas, and a lot of things in town, I'm sure. And Lee is in the Hall of Fame, and I think if people would say she probably should have been right there with him, because she was right by his side the whole time. Yep, she's going to be really missed.
She is,
Thanks,
thank
Ken.
you, Ken.
All right, Monica, Town Administrator.
I'm just working on annual evaluations for staff. Also, we sent out, I don't know if I said this last month or not, but we sent out that third fog letter to try to get the rest of the restaurants in town in compliance. We've probably got about 20 out there that haven't sent their fog registration form in. And so this letter was a lot stronger, saying there might be a fine associated with non-compliance, so that's it for right now.
All right. Tom?
Other than the reports that I've sent to you today about ongoing litigation involving the town, I do not have anything further to report.
And based on that, I also don't see any need for the closed meeting unless somebody feels, I had Debbie stick this on the other day. I said, just in case, because we have a couple matters pending and just wanted to cover us, but, so we don't need that. Is there any other business? Seeing none, I will move that we adjourn. Got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Do we need to pay the bills first?
We technically don't.
Okay.
I've been told that we don't need to do that, actually, so. It's on here, but.
Okay.
Okay. Just under 2 hours, pretty good.
Awesome. Not bad. 2 hours and 15 minutes.